let's talk about product level ad groups. Obviously, if we look at the pyramid, we're at the account structure level because we're going to set up multiple ad groups. Ad group setup, quick reminder, what options did you have? Well, you could go for a single ad group that you then subdivide. So remember, single campaign, single ad group, and that you subdivide into multiple product groups. You could have multiple ad groups, or you could get even more granular and go for the product level ad groups, which means that for each product you create a specific ad group. This is a practice that often leads to heated discussions amongst pay-per-click professionals. Everybody has his opinion on whether it's good or bad. I'm going to give you my opinion at the end of the lesson, but right now I just want to show you why it's a practice. Why do people use it? And then you're able to judge for yourself if it makes sense for your actual campaign. So the main reason is that you would use it to see which products trigger which search queries. So remember that in the beginning we had a problem. So when we looked at the search query level bidding, we had one campaign which was serving both branded and generic search queries. And we wanted to split these two to make sure that we were bidding right or looking at the performance right for both sets of keywords. And here it's a little bit the same because we want to be sure that the products that are most likely to lead to a sale show up for search queries. And if they're all grouped together, that's not possible. Let me take you through a couple of examples that will make this more clear. So first example is we have a single ad group. And if we then look in the search terms report, we can see here a query for Nike running shoes. 4,000 clicks, 20 sales, a 0.5 conversion rate. We have other queries in there too. Nike Free, we have Nike Free Black, and Nike Pegasus. So you can see that the more specific the search query, the higher the conversion rate. And in this ad group, we have multiple products. So the main problem is that for the Nike running shoes, we're unable to see which product appears for that and which product is most effective for that search query. So let's take a look at what that could look like if we had multiple ad groups. So in this case, we have two ad groups. We have one for the Nike Free, which is one product. There again, in that search terms report for that ad group, we see Nike running shoes, we see Nike Free and Nike Free Black. And then we have a second ad group for Nike Pegasus. We see again Nike running shoes and Nike Pegasus. So you can see the actual product searches, they didn't change that much. The clicks and sales and the conversion rate is the same. But if we take a look at the Nike running shoes, we actually see that the Nike Pegasus, it performs a lot better for that specific search query. We have a 1% conversion rate, while the other one hits about a 0.3%. So if we assume that the cost per click is the same, well, we want to make sure that Nike running shoes, that the Nike Pegasus product appears for that, right? And now we can finally see this, because before they were just all grouped together in a particular report. So if we have this split or this setup in your own campaigns, what changes would you be able to make based on these insights? So we saw that Nike Pegasus performs better for Nike running shoes. So we might want to increase the bid of that particular product because we know it does well. We could also decrease the bids for the other ad groups because we know that actually doesn't perform that well for that search query. Or we could even set it as a negative keyword in the other ad groups because it's not performing. But here in this case, I wouldn't set it negative, but I would decrease the bid. But if you see that certain search queries don't perform for some products, well, there's no point keeping them alive. So in this small example, I've used like one campaign and then one or more ad groups. But this split is also possible if you're going for generic and branded queries. So maybe in this example, you have 3 campaigns with the same products. You have one targeting generic searches, branded searches, and product searches. And you could do exactly the same thing. It just would become more complex, but the thinking or the logic behind the campaigns is the same. A second advantage is that you get more visibility on the performance of out-of-stock items, because you can see which products pick up the slack. In this example, so let's say you have a single ad group, and the Nike Pegasus, which is the best performing product, goes out of stock. Well, those product searches, you won't appear for those anymore, right? Because the product automatically is filtered out of your campaigns. But those generic searches, well, before you were ranking with that Nike Pegasus shoe that was doing very well, but since that's not available anymore, Google Ads will shift some of that budget to the Nike Free running shoe, and that might not be optimal. You can see that the cost is going up or staying flat, but the conversion rate goes down, and your revenue also goes down because you're making less sales, because the products that do remain are less relevant for you. If you had a setup with multiple ad groups, you would see this the drop in one ad group that would go to 0, obviously, but you could see the other ad group actually picking up the slack and increasing in the number of clicks, and you would be able to see that a lot better than if it was all grouped in one ad group. Okay, so up until now I've talked about the advantages of having multiple ad groups. So what happens is we go down to the product level ad groups and having a single ad group for each product. Well, it's difficult to set up, especially if you have a lot of products. This takes a while and you have to be pretty meticulous to make sure nothing goes wrong. It's also difficult to manage from your Google Ads interface because it's so split up. So what often happens is advertisers that use these product level ad groups, also called SKU level ad groups, they often use different tools to create and then manage the Google Ads campaigns. So they don't use actual Google Ads interface. And sometimes it makes a bit more sense. And then the third one, these appear to all be reasons against it, is that granularity spreads Google's optimizations efforts. So I've heard this a couple of times, and I don't 100% agree with it, but it's been a feedback that has come from Google itself. That if you split up your campaign too much, you'll actually limit the impact that their own systems and their own algorithms can have. Yeah, so why do I think this is not 100% accurate? Well, because one, it works, and two, they don't want you to get too smart about it. Because of course, if this becomes really the trend and more people start doing it, people will stop spending that much on ads, or they will be able to cut their spend. So yeah, that's why I wouldn't believe too much about it. So what is my take? I've told you about the heated discussions. So what is my opinion in those discussions? My opinion is not to go overboard. If you're getting started, or if you're still getting used to running your campaigns, don't do the product level ad groups. Sometimes you've seen in my campaigns, often I've got a single ad group, or I split ad groups based on top products, product types, or different brands when it makes sense. So I don't always split the ad groups, just when it makes sense. Hope that helps.